We also have, as part of it, the Therapeutic Use Exemption, and the medical persons will speak to that. In a nutshell, there are medications that address certain health issues, but have been discovered that can be used as masking agents, and I will throw certain terms around loosely. The discussion, of course, will come later, and feel free to ask for any definitions you need or explanations. Masking agents, in my layman's term, any medication that can be used to mask the actual performance-enhancing drug. In the early stages, the ventilator used for the treatment of asthma is one of those early masking agents and one of the more familiar ones. And so a therapeutic use exemption, fondly called by us the TUE, is one of the things that an athlete who is a genuine asthma sufferer and has to use a ventilator will have to provide when they get to the level of testing. And again, I will leave that for Dr. Ali and my colleague here from MUNA in the medical field to look into. So we have the issue of therapeutic use exemptions, laboratory, of course, because testing, when these samples are collected, they must go somewhere, and it must be in an established, standardized, recognized laboratory. You just can't take it to Kariri here on campus and say, here, now test this urine for me. We want to find out if this guy is cheating, because the laboratories must meet some accepted standards, international standards, and it will speak to why the whole anti-doping testing is such an expensive venture, especially for us locally in Trinidad, where we do not have a standardized, accepted laboratory. Most of our testing is done in Canada. And on an average, one sample collected from one athlete costs anywhere between $600 US and up to move from the country to the laboratory to be analyzed, for the results to be sent back to the necessary agencies. So laboratory and testing comes in there. And then, of course, there's always the protection of the privacy and the personal information of the individual under scrutiny. When we come to the legislation, of course, they are entitled to representation and an opportunity to have their say and may explain their case. So all of that is taken into consideration in the anti-doping code. So as an overview, we have our World Anti-Doping Agency. And the World Anti-Doping Agency is the overarching agency. But as we know, that's the global player. The World Anti-Doping Agency saw the need to break the thing down into the different regions, continents, regions, and countries, so that each area is responsible for what it does. So we have always the WADA as the overarching agency, and then we have what we call NADOs, National Anti-Doping Organizations, which I think Judith would speak to at some point in time, because here in Trinidad, we're still in the process of firming up our NADO. And we have RADOs. So NADOs are on the national, local level. And then we can belong, a NADO can belong to a RADO, which is now a regional anti-doping organization, which we do have in the Caribbean. So I am a RADO certified doping control officer, trained under the Caribbean Regional Anti-Doping Organization. And we are trained and we are retrained, because as recent as last year, we were retrained by USADA in a retraining exercise, and we always bring more people on board, because it is now becoming a rather onerous task here in the island and in the country and in the region, because I have been called to travel to other countries in the region to do sample collection. And I suppose that's one of the perks, some travel. But you do it voluntarily in the main. So if you're thinking of becoming a DCO, a doping control officer, keep that in mind. So we have the RADO, and then of course we have all the international sporting federations, as I said, who are compliant to the code and will depend on these agencies to help them in the fight in anti-doping. Thank you. So I hand over to Dr. Ali, and I'm at the end free to take questions.
I'll now ask Rachel to. Rachel will take us through looking at research in anti-doping.
Can you hear me? I am Dr. Irving from the University of the West Indies. I don't think as a Caribbean country we work together. I've published on anti-doping. How many persons know about this? We have taken samples from your famous Otto Bolden to do a genetic study published in the American College of Sports Medicine. I don't even know if many persons from the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine know about this. But more profound is that we allow WADA and IOC to determine our future without participating. We have what we call a steroid passport being implemented this year, January 2014. We have kidney disease in the Caribbean with a different pattern from Europe. And they're looking at your kidney profile, your filtration pattern, and there is no data from the Caribbean. Yes, it was implemented in January 2014. We are looking at testing of your hair, your tress. We have kinky tress in the Caribbean, and we are looking at quantitative and qualitative testing. If the chemical gets in your hair as a Caribbean person, it will stay longer. The amount will be more. It will be more concentrated. How can they do quantitative testing comparing something that is straight to something that is kinky? But we are to blame. Where is the research coming from the Caribbean? We have a triad, St. Augustine, Mona, and Barbados, yet we are not working together. Our athlete, Richard Thompson, Usain Bolt, they have contributed so much. Our government have signed on to the UNESCO Convention, yet still they took out Simoy Hackett out of the World Championship after we exonerated her. And that's unfair, because they would never have done that to an American. But we allow them to determine our future, and we must do better as a region. We talk about supplements. Do we provide our athletes with a software on their cell phone that they can access the FDA website at any time? We don't have to reinvent drug search. FDA does it for us. Yes, let us use that resource by just providing a software so they won't get into trouble. We have persons performing and practicing in the Caribbean. I don't want to talk about it now because it's a legal case, but we have somebody who is not certified as a physical therapist. He doesn't even have a BSc injecting an athlete. Where did he get a work permit from? He couldn't have done that in the US, and we must not allow it in the Caribbean. We talk about supplement. Do you know by definition orange juice that is concentrated is a supplement? How many persons know this? extracts are supplements. Do you know this? So if you take some extract just before and it's contaminated, you will be sanctioned. It might be just orange juice. Do you know that sour orange has synephrine and it's been monitored on the water banned list? Are we educating you guys enough, young persons enough? Are we forceful enough? They just gave Germany 1 million for research. We're talking about genetic profile. We have a mixed group in the Caribbean. Can you compare the genetic profile of a German to a Caribbean national? Where is the research? But we should not quarrel because the money is there and we have not applied. We have not applied. So when standards are set, we quarrel. The code was just changed, the water code was just changed. It's to be implemented in 2015, and less than 0.01% of Caribbean national made suggestion about that code. Our government representative that signed the UNESCO code did not make any suggestion. There are over 20,000 suggestions from Europe and America. So let's quarrel, but quarrel with ourselves. Let's be forceful. Let's stop quarrel about immigration and trade. And we must protect our borders. And you must have your standard. But let us quarrel about things that can help the Caribbean. Let us be constructive. Let us be a force. Let us collectively collaborate to present data to order, to say, listen, this is what we ought to do. Let us get our members, our qualified members on those committees. One member from the Caribbean is on the Executive Committee for Health, Medical and Research, and he's Dr. Adrian Lloyd from Barbados. Where are we? And we talk. We talk too much. We must act.
Anti-doping carries certain legal aspects of it, and the athletes has rights, and rights seems to play a big aspect in this world right now. And every aspect of anti-doping has to be well done, well calculated, otherwise the legal rights and medical legal problems tend to arise. I'll now ask Judith to address this aspect of anti-doping.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will start with talking about the protection and the recognition of fundamental human rights. I go straight to the aspect of the whereabouts rule, where an athlete who is registered under the testing pool must submit for 365 days of the year, where he would be for at least 1 hour per day, every day. Now, according to the Constitution in Trinidad and Tobago, Section C talks about the right of the individual to respect for his private and family life. It also speaks to freedom of movement, and it speaks to freedom of association and assembly. The freedom of association is, however, not only exercised in the political sense, but also for a vast array of interests, such as culture, recreation, sport, and social and humanitarian assistance. However, do you know in the code that comes into effect in 2015, WADA has put in place the prohibited association article, which prevents an athlete from associating with a trainer or a coach who has committed an anti-doping violation. It means then that if that athlete is found to be associating with that person, he of himself will also be subjected to an anti-doping violation and be sanctioned. When you look at the right that the athlete has, under the Constitution generally to associate with whomever he chooses. It appears as though his right to do so has now been infringed. Is it that the coach or the athlete will forever have this association hanging over his head? Isn't it that criminals who have served their sentences are free to go back out into society and live normal lives? Yet still, WADA has imposed this particular article upon us, and according to Dr. Irving, we did not say anything. We all signed on to it. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the 175 signatories to the code. What that means is that we must be compliant in all aspects. In 2013, the Anti-Doping in Sport Bill, Act number 10 of 2013, was passed unanimously in both houses of Parliament. There was no objection, but yet still the rights of athletes would be affected and would be affected until that particular code is changed. Silence from the athletes. We heard nothing from the athletes indicating how they felt about it. Submissions were required to be made, and according to Dr. Irving, we hardly submitted